it's going to look different. And you're going to have a child say, well, that's not fair. They don't have to do that, or they get to do that. That's because they're in a different season. So we're going to talk about that. And Merle's going to tackle the different seasons. So you're going to need your pen, and you're going to need to write down these seasons of parenting.
Yeah, so that's a good point about the seasons. And so let's just walk through them. Season 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay? And so season 1, I want you to think of like a farmer, okay? And so a farmer, a lot of people think that farmers are just working a couple seasons out of the year, okay? And the truth of it is, in the middle of winter, the farmers are getting it done. What does a farmer do in the middle of the winter? Anybody grow up farming or around a farmer community or anything? I mean, we're kind of in farm country here. I know it's changing quickly, but right in the middle of winter, guys, farmers are planning. Farmers are getting equipment ready. Farmers are buying seed. Farmers are getting fertilizer ready. They're getting it set. Okay? Physically, are they moving much? Probably not like you think of as a farmer, right? That's season 1 for the farmer. Season 2 for the farmer is the spring season. And that's when we are starting to see things get done. We are planting that seed. Okay, we're out plowing fields, disking fields, planting, laying down fertilizers, these kinds of things. Okay, we're getting it done. Season 3 is that summer season. And season 3, we're helping it do its thing, right? Whether we've got to water a little bit more, whether we've got to go and weed, whether we've got to make sure that the animals aren't eating it. But we put all this time in, now let's see if we can get it to go. And season 4 for that farmer is that fall season, that harvest. I finally reap the benefits. I've got the produce. I've got the product. Look how good my yield was this year, all right? We want to think about this now. Let's transfer it over into the parenting world. Season 1. Season 1 is from 0 to about 2 to 3 years of age, okay, depending on your kiddo and their maturity. And that season is what you guys are going to be called leaders, or the leadership season, okay? I'm sorry, service. I'm one ahead of myself. You're in service. You're in service.
This little guy right over here. What's his name?
Yeah, buddy.
What's his name? It's a girl. I'm sorry. Esther.
Nothing but service.
How old is Esther? Okay.
Yeah.
Service.
Full blown. What that means. Sorry, Mom. You are her slave. Okay? In other words, you're full blown service. I mean, you're changing diapers, you're feeding, you're dealing with crying, and you're all about them. Okay? And that's the service. All right? You don't ask them to do much. You try to figure out their language. Oh, this cry means this. Oh, this noise means this, okay? But it's you just trying to interpret and figure it out. And you're starting to set your mind, and you're starting to even recognize personalities. We get down to a year and a half, you're like, oh, this is a happy child. This is a cranky child, right? And so you're like, oh, my gosh. But we're learning in that first season of service.
I love that. Esther's just perfect.
Like, yeah, we brought her.
Like
nice prop. Nice prop. Okay, you can go now because I need a season 2 now, okay? All right, and so season 2. So season 2 is going to run from about the age of 3.
2 or 3.
2 or 3.
Terrible twos. And
yeah,
terrible
so 2 to 3 is weird because it's developmental times. I can't say 2 and you're done, all right? It's the terrible 2. So it depends on the developmental preparedness of the kid. And so let's just say 2 or 3 to 13, okay, about 13.
12 to 13.
And so this, guys, this is the leadership season. This is leadership. How many of you have children or a child in this particular season?
Mm-hmm. That's usually
Did you bring any Advil, ibuprofen, or anything today? This is work, guys. This is work. This is work because you are setting the stage for how things are going to go. What your kid expects. Your kid's worth ethic. Your kid's value system. Your kid's understanding of how to interact with people. this is you leading the way. And so, a big part of our talk today is going to be about leadership in the home. Guys, this right here is where we are really hurting as a family culture because the world is saying your kid should be doing, they have their children's rights, right? And those seem to be superseding everybody else's, right? And so we're going to flip that a little bit and talk about the leadership.
Yeah. So season 1 is service, 0 to 2 or 2 or 3. And then season 2 is from 2 or 3 to about 12, 13. You know, now it's becoming even earlier with the engagement of the smartphone and on internet. They think that a 10-year-old should be a teenager. Okay. We're going to say no, but that's what they think. Okay. Because you're still the leader. Leadership is this season, and you have to drive it. When they say everyone has a smartphone, I should get one, you're still the leader. I should be allowed to go on a date in the 5th grade. No, you're still the leader. And so this is where the world is saying, I should get to do what I want. And leadership, we're saying in season 2, is so critical that the parents stay in authority. And I will give you a little preface to what we're going to talk about later on in the afternoon. The minute you give your child a smartphone, you've lost your voice as the leader. Because now they're going to talk to their friends. They're going to ask their friends' opinion. They're going to go to them. And so be very, very careful when you abdicate that role. We'll talk about that a little bit
They're
later.
going to Google it. How are babies made? I don't have to have a conversation with you anymore. And that becomes the authority.
Well, I'll give you an example. When our daughter got her smartphone at age 13, within a week, we were going shopping for clothes for school. And I remember very clearly, she used to come out and give me the fashion show and want me to tell her what she thinks I think. She never came out of the dressing room because she had a phone. She was taking pictures and texting them to her friends. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? I didn't have a say in that anymore. That was 13. I lost my spot. She got her phone that summer. So just think about that.
Third season. Guys, third season is, let's just say, from 13-ish. And this is to emancipation, or what we would like to say between 18 and 21. In other words, they're going to flee the nest, okay? And so this has really gotten weird. This has gotten weird because there used to be somewhat of an expectation. Now, again, everybody was raised a little differently. I'm probably older than most everybody here.
Yes.
Wow. See how fast she jumped on that?
So am I, though.
Yeah.
So am I.
Yeah, you're only a year or so behind. So, my dad used the phrase all the time. When you're 18, don't let the door hit you in the butt. When you're 18, you're going to college. You're going to military. When you're 18, you're not sitting around here. I grew up with that. And so did everybody else in my generation. So that while I was turning 18, it wasn't 18 and I'm out. It was, I'm 15. Oh, I'm 16, I can't get my license. Yeah. 17, yeah, I got a job. Yeah, 18, yeah, I'm graduating and I'm out. Guys, we have 18, 19, and 20-year-olds that still don't have their driver's license. Oh, they just don't want to drive. I don't want to put that on them. Are you kidding me?
They don't have a job.
You're handicapping your kid. They can't fly when you're in the nest. And so the expectation that comes through this time, we call this season the mentorship season. This is the mentorship. You are producing young individuals, and now you're mentoring them for the adulthood that they're going to be coming into. You're mentoring them. You're like, no, you're going to be 16 in 2 years. We're going to start treating you as if you're going to be 16 in 2 years so that when that comes, we're not having to put helmets and seatbelts on everybody 3 states away when you hop in a car. You'll be prepared. You'll know. When you want those $200 Nikes, cool. You have money to buy them because you'll have this thing called a job. Guys, this is not being mean. This is equipping them. All right? And think of this. In this season, our kids have to be empowered And the only way you empower somebody is you give them the power to do it. You don't do for them. You don't do for them.
Yeah, you're out of the service stage, remember?
Yeah.
That's only till 2.
Yeah. And this shocks people. This shocks people. On a daily basis, we have people coming in like, yeah, well, my son, he's 26. He's down in the basement. I don't know, like can't hold a job, you know. What's he doing in the basement? Well, man, he's really good at video games. He wants to be a video game designer someday. What's he do? Does he do his laundry?
Well, no, I do that for him.
Yeah. It's like
He doesn't know how.
you've destroyed the poor kid. You've destroyed it. Okay? And so we got to move past that. And we have to set expectations early. The last season, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The last season, right? This, guys, this is the harvest. This is the harvest. This is the 4th season. And this is where you now can start to use these terms like friend and counsel. Okay? So this is where our 2 older boys, and really even our 3rd, this is where they are. This is where you communicate with them because you enjoy communicating with them. All right? This is where, and this drives Linda crazy because they're boys. And so they've kind of fled mommy. Okay?
They're not asking me about what car to buy,
but they
what
call
house
me,
to go to.
hey, Pops, man, I'm thinking about buying this Jeep. Like, what do you think? I'm like, dude, that's cool. You should do that, you know?
Because it's not your money.
Yeah, I don't care what they spend. Right? But now we have this camaraderie going on, and this is the harvest. Both of our older boys, they're Navy SEALs, just got out from the SEALs. They got their own kids. They're doers. They're shaking it down. And guys, as parents, we could not be more proud. We could not be more proud, right?
Yeah, but we don't pay their bills. We don't tell them where to move, what to do. And so part of that, moms, is relinquishing control. Is that, by the way, I want you to write this phrase down because in this season, unsolicited advice equals criticism. Okay? If they're not asking for your advice, you don't give it to them. And I know there's some adult children in here of parents who do that, and it drives you crazy. Like, Mom, I am 30-something years old, right? But Mommy still has an opinion, all right? So if you have adult children, keep it to yourself. If they ask, great, okay? But this is the stage. But you should not be paying their bills. You should not be driving them around. You should not be taking care of them. They should buy their own clothes so they get to decide what they're wearing, right? They're paying their own car payment so they get to decide what car they drive. Our 20-year-old, he is living on his own, and he's got a 2003 Honda Civic that literally has
It's like a 1997.
a 1997, and it's literally got a hanger for a door handle. Like, but it's his, right? I didn't buy it. He's the one.
He actually, guys, so he's our oldest adopted child. And he never really bonded with us. We got him when he was 11, okay? And it speaks to, even though his dad was in prison, he loved his dad. He loved his dad, but his dad at that time was a bad dad. But that was still the hero of that child. All right? That's why, dads, I need you. I need you. These kids see you. Moms, for sure. But dads, your masculine strength, especially with these boys, these kids just, they gravitate towards it. And so when he was 11, he had a picture of his dad up in his room all the time. We said, hey, I'm never going to be your dad. I'm not trying to replace your dad. All right? And so he butt us the whole time, which is, I get it, right? When he was 16, he was trying to smoke weed in the house. He was trying to do all these different things. We're like, dude, and we're going to speak about this in a second. Our values are our values. We're not changing our values because you don't like them. This is how we're going to roll here. If you don't like them, you're going to have to figure it out.
We love you. But
yeah, we love you, but we're not changing it because you don't like it. And at 17, he moved out. Okay? He quit school. He moved out.
Moved in with his dad.
Moved in with his dad.
Who was out of prison by then.
Yeah. And so, guys, that's part of he wanted to be emancipated, right? My take was don't let the door hit you in the butt because he's saying, I want to grow up. I want to do things on my terms. I get it. I actually appreciate that. They killed Linda. It killed Linda. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen to him? And this is where you have to come and say, hey, listen, he wants to fly. Let him fly. Let him fly. He's going to figure this out. All right. And so it's just important that we understand. Now, this gets to the last part, and we'll start a discussion unless, honey, you got something else to talk about. Here's our key through today. Everything we're going to talk about rests on the idea that we can build a united front in parenting. You're going to hear that frequently today. A united front. All right? That means that if Linda says something, I support it and back it up in front of the kids. Okay? Now, if she says something and I'm like, why did you say that? I don't say in front of the kids, well, I don't agree with your mother. I go back behind closed doors and say, hey, hon, what's going on with that? Like,
Which we've had many of those.
yeah, they happen, right? We're two different people. But in front of these kids, we always present as a united front. If I don't, I will create what we call triangulation, all right? As soon as that kid sees that he can split mommy and daddy. Have you ever watched the show Survivor? Okay? The very first thing that happens in Survivor, as soon as they hit that island, the very first thing is they start to try to build alliances. It's nature. That's how we survive. And so if all of a sudden, if this alliance is not built, it will be destroyed. All right? And before you know it, one of the adults who's supposed to be the operator here will be out. Right? And they will be replaced by a child.
Yep. You'll shoot yourself in the foot and you'll undermine the authority that you're trying to lead with, especially in season 2 and 3. So what we're going to have you do is we're going to have you get into, and if you guys want to move to another table or whatever, feel free. We're going to have you get into a little discussion groups, okay? And there's some questions on that page that we're asking you to share, okay? And so we're really asking you to kind of share what season you're in, okay, with each other, but then also what changes maybe do I need to make? Am I serving my 12-year-old too much? Am I expecting too much out of my 3-year-old? So let's talk a little bit about maybe some adjustments that you need to make based on what we just shared today, okay? So we're going to do that, and then at 10:45, we'll have you guys break for coffee or drink or whatever, okay? All right, so discussion till 10:45. You got about 10, 15 minutes.
We'll get rolling here. So this next session is something that we wrote into this because Linda and I were blown away by the number of families that were dealing with this situation. Okay? It was so commonplace that we looked at each other and we're like, really? Like, is this really a problem? And the reason why it is a problem is because you're going to see, and you may already experience it in your house, as to what the result of this is. All right. So you can flip your paper over to session 2. Who's the boss? Who's the boss?
Especially for all those how many guys are in the leadership stage again? You're in at least, yeah. So most of us are in the leadership season. So you're going to need this.
It starts in that season of the leadership, but it goes very strongly in through the next season, okay? I mean, because you'll get teenagers that will really start to push back. They're 15, 16, 17 years old, and they definitely, and by the way, that's okay. They're trying to show you that they want to have some of that say in their life, right? But that's not just the time that they order you around and they become the boss of the house. So we're going to talk a little bit about what this looks like. Guys, this is, you can see the scripture. And so this is a difficult part here. This is out of Ephesians 6:4. It says, fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. What does exasperate mean? Make worse. beating them up, verbally nagging. Peck, 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 peck. When will this ever go away? You drive me crazy. All right? By the way, we're guilty. We're guilty. We do these things with good intention, but we have a wrong mindset. And we're going to play with that today in terms of, oh, I didn't realize I was stuck in that. It comes into this, all right? Let's talk about who's the boss, all right? Well, God is really funny. He has a great sense of humor. We call the terrible twos because around between 2 and 3, kids discover something called me, mine, no, right? And what they just discovered was themselves, right? And is the age of opportunity to serve me, right? And that's what makes it terrible. They can now grab, is this yours? I want it. It's mine, right? They can start to manipulate the world. That's exciting. That's exciting stuff. So I can't look at that kid and be mad. They're actually going to that next phase of wanting to explore that world. But this is where my leadership has to kick in. Okay? This is where oh my gosh, now I got to start to regulate and govern this a little bit better. All right? I could overregulate. We have that. That's a major problem. Your kids can't do anything. You just pretty much lock them down because you're afraid of them making mistakes or giving you a bad name or getting hurt. Okay? Or I could underregulate. Well, just let them do their thing. Right? So somewhere in the middle there is that happy medium. Okay? But who's the boss? Here are some signs to see. And just think about this. If you're wondering whether your child's trying to become the boss, here are some things that we have some fun with. Does your child constantly throw tantrums? Lots of crying, lots of no, a rebelliousness in that early age. If that is, what are they trying to exert? Their will. Okay? So, I can't take them to the store because they'll throw a tantrum. They're trying to get their way. Understand that. All right? And so it's time for you to play up your game a little bit and realize, oh, they want to be king. I get it. I get it. All right? So you have to know that. How about dominating over others through bossing, hitting, intimidation, threats, biting? If you have that bossy little kid, that kid could probably be a great leader someday, but left unchecked, he will be a reckless leader, right? He will be reckless. It'll be his way or the highway. And so if I have a kid who's always trying to dominate, all right, I get it, that's cool, but we better teach that well. We better teach that. We're going to talk about how we teach that well, all right? Playing the victim game. It's not fair. Nothing ever goes my way. You always listen to them. You don't listen to me. What are they trying to do? Trying to manipulate you so that you will come onto their side. Okay? And so they're basically trying to alter who has control in the house. This is where united we stand, divided we fall. All right? Let's see. How about this? Negotiating, constant negotiating. This is crazy. This is crazy. You need to go to your room for the next 10 minutes. How about 5? What'd you just say to me? I'm not going for 10. I'll go for 5.
Oh, and if you're in leadership stage, if you're in season 2, you better not negotiate because they know I gotcha.
Here's the rule for negotiation. You never negotiate with somebody that doesn't value your values. Hear me. You never negotiate. I'm not going to go buy a car from the guy down the street if I hear that he has a value system that values him over you. No, I'll go. If I have to pay $1,000 more, I'll go to this guy down here because I know he values me as a customer. Right? So Who does a 3-year-old value? Himself. Himself. And that's okay. He's okay. But I'm not going to negotiate with him. I need you to clean up your toys. Oh, I'll do it later. No, the later was not in my statement. You're going to go clean up your toys. Okay? And we're going to get this done. All right? Let's see. Rudeness, disrespect, calling you names, trying to hit you. These are all exertion of power and authority. Oh, they're just kids. Yeah, they're just kids. But this is not like, well, I'm not going to let them win. No, this is not about winning. This is about you establishing the authority in the home. Okay? And so we want to do this well. We're going to talk about how we do this well.
That's a huge one, hon, because growing up, I would have never, ever thought of talking back to my parents, hitting or punching my parents. I had a 12-year-old that pushed their mom down the steps, and she did nothing except, like, you shouldn't do that. I'm like, you call the police. Like, this was a girl who kept pushing and nagging and pushing and pushing, and she had showed her mom, like, I'm the boss. And that mom came to me with her tail between her legs. I'm like, you've got to get some authority in this home again. You got to reestablish who's the leader. Because right now, that 12-year-old is running the show.
Write this down. I will never argue with my kids. Write it down. You have to. I'm the authority here. No, I will never argue with my kids. Guys, when you open the door to the argument, it instantly reveals that you're insecure in your position. That your no doesn't quite mean no because you're not quite convinced. And the idea that you would debate with an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 15-year-old says that you aren't quite sure. And if they could give you a better argument, they might persuade you. Right? I will start to negotiate when I trust that they value our family. Okay?
Our 18-year-old, that's where we're at.
Yeah. So our 18-year-old might say, hey, Mom, Dad, like, can I stay out a little later tonight? We got some things going on. Maybe could I come in at 12:30 or 1? Normally she comes in at like 12 or 11:30, whatever. And we will say, use your best judgment. You're good. Okay? She just negotiated. All right? And we went right with it. Our 16-year-old might have to be in at 10. Can I come in at 10:05? No way, you're not coming in at 10:05. We don't negotiate with him. And the reason why we don't, guys, and this you might think we're bad, he's not trustworthy. He lies to us. He does his own thing. He cheats. He steals. Right? Does that mean he's criminal? No. It means he's very selfish. And he still thinks his way is way more important than anybody else's. And so we don't negotiate with him. We're like, well, it's not fair. You let Mackenzie stay out. Yeah, because Mackenzie values what we've got going on here. You haven't demonstrated that yet. So this is not a discussion. All right? And so do not argue with your kids. Can you just sit there and imagine yourself arguing with your 5-year-old and your 5-year-old going, oh, Mom, you're right. You know what? The way you just put that, that last statement, Mom, that you made, now you got me. Now I'm on your side, Mom. It's not going to happen, guys. They're arguing to basically exert their will on you. And if you go, whatever, and by the way, we usually don't lose an argument. We usually fatigue out of arguments.
PFS?
Whatever. And that, in the child's mind, is the win. Right? Okay. Here's something I need you guys to write down. Okay, and we're moving through this. I want you to take a couple minutes, and I want you to write down what values, or you might think of character traits, that you want your kid to have when they finally flee the nest. Okay? So my kid's 18, he's going to college. I hope my kid is boom, boom, boom. Right? You don't need to write, it could be a 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't need to be a book. When they leave, I hope I put this in them.
This was an important question that we had to not only ask when we were raising our first two, but we had to reevaluate and reestablish with our youngest three because they came in at 11, 10, and 7. So it wasn't something we just did naturally when they were born and into the toddler years. We had to like retrain some children who had really bad habits and did not see these values growing up. And so we had to name them. We had to speak them constantly.
All right. What you just did here in that little exercise, you're going to be referring to that from now until your kids leave your home. So do not lose that. And we're going to build on it a little bit. Give me a few examples. Raise your hand or just tell me, yell out, oh, I want my kid to be what? Honest.
Honest.
Okay. Add that to your list. If it's not on it, that's a good one. Honest. Give me another. What's that? Loyal. I want him to be a loyal person. Okay. Value relationships. These are good. What else? Respectful.
Self-sufficient.
Self-sufficient. Self-independent, maybe. Okay? Confident. These are great. Discernment. Yes, they can judge like, oh, is this a good or bad? Yeah, discernment. What else? A leader. Okay, and where are they leading to, right? Our 16-year-old has great leadership skills, but God only knows where he's going to lead you. All right, and so you have to be aware of that. You have to be aware, like, oh my gosh, he's got the skills, but the values are not underpinning that yet. Okay, anything else? A humbleness in the heart. Okay, that's because they're coachable. They can hear things that are hard to hear and respond well. Good work ethic. Service in their heart, right? To serve others. These are great. These are perfect. Okay, guys. Okay, we could go on, but right there. This is now your foundation of how you operate. Anything that these guys do. And by the way, we're in a church, so Linda and I say our value is Christian living, okay? A faith in God. And so these are the values. And as Linda was just saying there, most couples get together and they assume that things you just named. They assume them. Oh, sure, we want our kid to be sure, we want our kid to be independent. Sure. They have to start to be voiced. They have to be said. This should not be a guessing game. All right? Linda likes word art on the walls. Trust, faith. We used to tease her. Like my sister would walk in the house. Oh, we're being faithful today. Oh, okay. Hey, these are things that our kids, by the way, after you do this today, within a very short time, a couple months, depending on the age of your kids should know the values of your home. This should not be a guessing game. In our home, we are trustworthy. This should not be a guessing game. In our home, we are respectful. Okay? So these are the language that your kids grow up with. Do not leave it up to others to determine the values that your kid's going to live by. You guys establish them because these will be the things that you will constantly refer to. When your kid says something and disrupts the home, you'll be able to say, well, you know what? That was disrespectful. You'll take all of their behaviors will always go back to the value system that you said, well, this is why this is a problem, or this is why we're awarding or applauding it.
Our 16-year-old, what's integrity, Nick? Doing the right thing when no one's watching. Like, he knows that. It's like a memorized definition because we want him to be a young man of integrity.
It doesn't mean he's there. It's why we have to keep bringing it up, okay? We have to bring it up because he makes these choices that are all about him, and he steps on other people, okay? And so, like, dude, was integrity. I know, right? But he's got to hear that language, right? All right.
We better get to two types.
Okay, so this will be fun. We're going to step on toes here. Raise your hand if you are a yeller. I got one. Okay, all right. Linda, get your hand up louder.
I'm
louder.
A reformed
louder,
yeller.
Linda. Linda! My mom was a yeller. Oh, my gosh. You kids drive me crazy. I shouldn't talk that way. She's passing
Well,
this Mother's Day weekend.
she
That's
had
so
5 kids and
disrespectful.
3 in diapers. Her youngest 3 were like 18
Yeah, we
months
had
apart
5
with
kids
twins.
in 5 years,
Yeah.
okay? But that was how she was wired. And she would yell at us. And it didn't take us, we have 3 boys and 2 girls, and us boys were ornery. It didn't take us boys long to know that mom cannot back it up. By the time we were 12 and 13 years old, mom would just be yelling. And us boys would walk away and go, there she goes again. There she goes. But there was something else that happened in our house. She would say, you know what, guys, I've had enough of your stuff today. You're going to talk to your father tonight. And as a little kid, now I'm not getting weird, but this is what would happen.
Don't go further than that.
And we'd have to eat dinner with Dad like this. What do you think that does? Guess what's going to happen? He's not taking his pants. Abuse is when you are doing things to walk by your kid. You yell at your kid for no reason. Those are things that leave scars on your kids. Like, oh my gosh, what was that about? But when the values have been established, the kid says, listen, crazy things about risk. Kid goes, sometimes we make bad decisions. Okay? But we knew it. So Dad would, I can't eat. Worth
Both of them have author and then an I, and TATIVE is authoritative, and authoritarian is TARIAN. This is when a slide would be helpful, just to mail.
all of you kids drive me crazy. I'm the boss around here. You can't do this. This is my house. You know what? You do that, I'm taking life. Yeah, how's that? You're doing really cool at 30 and don't have a make these the authority, those values, those values.
Yeah. So, what we're asking you to do as a united front is to come up with a game plan. Merle and I used to call our bedroom the war room. Like when our youngest three, we would go into our room. They weren't allowed to go into our bedroom. And that's where we would go and talk about it. Like, okay, he just did this or she just did that. Now what? And we would come up with a plan, and then we would come out of the war room and we would execute it. And Merle is speaking, or I was speaking with calmness, with certainty, with a consequence. Like, this is what you did, this is what's going to happen. Or if you do this, this is what's going to happen. And so we've got to make sure that we've got, like Merle said, you can't have empty threats. You can't be like, I'm going to, by the way, the older they are, the more delayed the consequence can be. A 2 or 3 or 4 year old, they don't have a whole lot of memory. So you can't punish them tomorrow for something that they did, yesterday, okay? But a 12-year-old, you can say, Dad and I are going to talk, and we'll let you know. You know this was wrong, okay? If you're a single parent, okay, let me just speak to the single parents for a second, or you're co-parenting, okay? That's when you have got to give yourself some timeouts. If they push your buttons, they know they pushed your buttons. You got to go in and take a deep breath. You got to go in and think through it. You don't have to have immediate answers, okay? Especially if there is someone else, a co-parent, blended family situation. You got to make sure that you and your ex are on the same page, because there's going to be some pushback, and you got to make sure, as much as it's in your control, you are a united front, or that you have a plan that you're executing with them. It's like one of the new ways of parenting now. 2.5.
I'm getting to it. I'm getting to it. I'm getting to it.
Mm-mm. So I want you to write this phrase down on your paper, because this is kind of what we're saying. We want you to mean what you say what you mean, but don't say it mean. Okay? Mean what you say what you mean, but don't say it mean. So Merle is basically saying, you're going to say what you are telling them, You're going to follow through with what you say. And we don't want you to exasperate them. We don't want you to nag them. We don't want you to yell. Okay? Don't say it mean. Say it firmly, confidently, respectfully. This is the way it's going to be. Trust me, you will have a different kind of peace in your home than losing your crap and, going nuts. It will give you peace. Like, this is what I'm doing. Mean what you say what you mean, but don't say it mean. And I also want to mention, hun, because you mentioned the belt. We're not saying you beat your kids, okay? We're not saying that, okay? But we are saying that you need two different approaches to discipline, the carrot and the stick, okay? And the stick is a metaphor for a punishment, a consequence, okay? So the carrot is a reward. Hey, if we can get our stuff all cleaned up, we'll go to the park this afternoon. That's the carrot, okay? Hey, if we don't get our stuff cleaned up, then we're not going to have a dessert after dinner tonight, okay? That's the stick, okay? So you get to decide based on your age. Little Ivy, she is adorable, okay? So there's probably going to be a lot more carrots than sticks, okay? A lot of carrots. But don't get too crazy about the carrots, okay? Because then it's all like, I'll do this if I get a reward, okay? So you got to be careful with the carrots. Too many carrots make an entitled brat. Like, what are you going to give me for it, okay? So we got to have a balance of both.
I drive down the interstate, and about every mile or so, I see this thing called a speed limit sign. Okay? It says 70 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour. So somebody up at the legislature said, hey, on this road, a safe or reasonable speed is 70. So a law was passed. It was stated, it was passed. And then, just for my sake, it's posted. It's posted. And so I drive down 74 or 5 or wherever I'm at, and I do this. Risk assessment. Risk assessment. Risk assessment. Okay? And all of you know exactly the roads that you drive, and you know, I can get by with 74 on this. Yeah, I know. You're evil, just like me. You do risk assessment. Okay? But all of a sudden, one day, Mr. Johnny Law is sitting there, and he pulls out, and he pulls you over. And you act like a 3-year-old. I can't believe you pulled me over. Did you see all the other cars? I pulled you over, sir. Right? And so here's how a police officer is trained to give you a ticket. All right? He says, hey, I need your license. I need your information. Okay? And you're just belly aching at him like crazy about how unfair, how life's terrible, how all cops are jerks.
Or I cry. I got out a lot of tickets from crying.
Which is an emotional authoritarian move, okay? She cries. And so the cop's going, okay, well, you can talk to the judge if you want, but have a good day. All right? I want you to think about that in parenting. Think about that in parenting. He is an authoritative actor at that point. What would happen if the cop started engaging in your argument? What would happen? It would be nasty, wouldn't it? And we have that happen. That's how we get to some of these crazy spots. Cops are trained, do not engage with these people because they're emotionally charged. You stay out and you stick to the law. All right? Now, the other side of it is if I post 70 miles an hour on that highway, and me and my buddy have been driving that highway for 15 years, and ain't none of us ever had a ticket, and we drive 90 on that thing. That means there's no enforcement. That means the law is worthless. So if you have laws or rules in your house that never get enforced, they're wasting everybody's time. If you're going to take the time to say, in our house, this is how we operate, and here's what we expect. You just posted the sign. Here's the speed limit sign. This is what we expect. You then have to enforce it, and you do not get into an emotional game of enforcement. You go, yep, this is how it looks today, okay? Once in a while, you can carry the grace card. I got pulled over about 2 weeks ago. Woo, man. My heart still beats fast when I get pulled over. 61 and a 55. He pulls me over. He does a background check on me. Thank God. I don't have too much going on there. He comes back and he says, "Hey, Mr. Hutchinson, have a good day. Just slow it down." Oh, thank you, Lord. He gave me a grace ticket, okay? But it was his to determine, not mine. It was his to determine, not mine. He's the authority. Guys, jump into discussion. There's some questions there. Your questions, oh, I just flipped right over them. Here they
In
are.
what ways are you an authoritative parent, which would be what we want? How about times when you turn into an authoritarian? And then the values. Share the values that you maybe wrote for your family. And then
lunch is at what time, Connor?
about 10 minutes, I think.
About 10 minutes or
Yeah.
so?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Do it.
I want to mention a couple different resources that are out on that table. Some of them, this was kind of a last minute question with Connor, if like you want us to set up a table. So I didn't really make sure I had all the books. We give books and resources away constantly, so they fly off our shelf faster than I can put them back on. So there's a couple resources there that are on your sheet, a couple of them that are not. The ones that we've already talked about, one of them is The Collapse of Parenting by Dr. Leonard Sachs, which I highly recommend. It is so good. He is a pediatrician of 40 years, and he speaks about what he is seeing differently happening in the parenting realm and how literally the collapse, which is kind of what we've been talking about with season one and in session 1 and session 2. And then the other book, which was in our first session, was Parenting by the Book. Now, it's a classic by actually, he doesn't even want to call himself a doctor anymore, John Roseman, who we actually had on our podcast, who is a psychologist turned Christian and now speaks from a faith perspective. And he denounces so much of what the psychology world is doing today that they wanted to withdraw his license. They wanted to take his license as a psychologist because that he is denouncing so much of the psychology world. But his book, Parenting by the Book, is so good. And that's actually where the seasons of parenting comes from. He really breaks that down a lot more. So I think you'll really enjoy that book. It's coming from a faith perspective. He talks about using the book, God's Word, as the guide for parenting. And so he just has so much common sense stuff. I think you'll really enjoy it. That book is out on the table, but The Collapse of Parenting is not. We've given away our last copy, and I didn't have time to order more. But we're going into session 3, which is something new that we actually learned from one of our coaches. We hired a young coach who is a licensed social worker, and she has worked in wilderness therapy and with the school-based psychology world. And so she brought this next item, and actually I put them on your table, and that is the empowerment/drama triangle. And what it did is it really, for me, gave you a visual of what we've been trying to teach parents for a really long time, and that is how we react out of what our kids do versus how we respond from what they do. And so what we want to do is teach you about what you maybe are doing in the drama triangle and get you out of the drama triangle and get you into the empowerment triangle, okay? And so hopefully you all have one of these. If you don't, raise your hand and Merle will get you one. I think we put them on. Do you need one of these? Here we go. Get this for you. Do you need one of these? So, again, this is not my model, but it definitely, I think, teaches a lot about what we can learn. The scripture for this one is out of 2 Timothy 1, where it says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." And so we're talking today just about how we don't, especially mamas, okay, these mama bears, oh my gosh, my child is going to get hurt. Oh my gosh, he's going to grow up messed up. You know, all these different fears of us as parents. And how we can respond out of power and love and out of a sound mind, okay? And so that's what we're really working on today. So, a little bit of science here. For any of you in the medical field, there is different parts of your brain and you respond differently depending on what part of the brain you use. And so there's this amygdala in the back of your brain behind your ears that is the fear brain, okay? And so when we are in that amygdala, how many guys have ever heard of fight, flight, or freeze? Okay? That's where you get that. That's where you're in. If you are in a fight or flight mode, you're in the fear brain, okay? And so you're going to react like if you put your finger on the stove, ouch, it's hot, right? Or all of a sudden the fire alarm goes off, you jump, right? That's the fight or flight mode. And what happens as a parent is that we end up in this mode because our kids are coming at us with, punching the little brother, right? Or, saying no to you when you're asked, or throwing a toy across the room. And so we get into the fear brain. And so what we want to do is we want to move to the prefrontal cortex, which is the rational thinking part of the brain, where we can decide what would be the best answer and response right now. What should we do when our kid's screaming bloody murder for the last 15 minutes, okay? And I'm about at my wit's end. There's that PFS Merle was talking about before, the parenting fatigue syndrome, right? And so it's like, oh, I'm really tired right now, so I'm probably going to react instead of responding. So what we want to do is we want to teach our children how to get out of the drama triangle, okay? So let's take a look at the triangle because it has so much good stuff on there for you that I'm hoping that you can just have that in front of you. But I do want you to put down under the drama triangle the fight, flight, freeze. And then there's one more that we really don't talk about much, but it's actually another F, and it's fawn, F-A-W-N. So fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Write those 4 words down there by the drama triangle because fawn is a fancy word for people pleasing, okay? Like, okay, I'm sorry. I don't want to make you mad. Oh, don't scream. We're in a store. I don't want us to get in, I don't want people to look at me. So yes, you can have the candy. Oh yes, you can ride the horsey. We people please and we fawn and we are in the drama. Okay. And so take a look at what you have in there. And I want you guys to be thinking about the different relationships you have with your children, with your spouse, maybe with a parent or a friend. We will flip into these different roles depending on who we're with, okay? For instance, Merle mentioned already, can be a rescuer, okay? This is somebody who wants to meddle as a mama, like I'm like in my 18-year-old girl's business, like, oh, I think that dress is too short, and oh, do you really want to wear that? And so I can be the rescuer, okay, where I try to provide temporary relief. I will go and spend the money for my daughter to get her nails done before prom because she doesn't have money and she wants nails for her prom, right? Like I'll go in and rescue that, even though we said this is the budget, this is how much we'll spend, okay? I will get in that. I'll get in that drama because, oh my gosh, you can't go to prom without nice nails, right? And so I will get sucked into that. And my daughter, she's the victim in that. Like, oh, I don't have any money and they're not scheduling me to work. And, oh, but I had to go out and buy new clothes, And so it's like, this is my problem all of a sudden. And so the victim thinks they're powerless and incapable. They feel helpless and hopeless. They feel needy and unwilling to take responsibility. The poor me syndrome, okay? And then you got the persecutor, okay? The criticizer, the blamer, the judger, the person that's demanding, controlling, like it's your fault, okay? And so all of those scenarios are in the drama triangle, all right? And we can play this out with our kids, all right? If your child is complaining over and over and over again that no one plays with me on the playground, no one wants to be my friend, nobody invites me over, you don't let me do anything, okay? You are feeding the victimhood, all right? They're in the drama triangle, and I need you. I'm telling you, I have kept this model in my mind ever since one of our coaches taught us this because it makes so much sense of where I'm getting sucked down into. Okay. So, what we want to do is we want to flip the script. And I literally want you to flip that triangle, okay, and look at the opposite. What's the opposite of a victim in this triangle? The creator, okay? And so we want to empower those kiddos that feel like no one likes them or nothing ever goes my way. And we want to teach them to be a creator and help them own power to choose and respond. We want them to focus on their options. We want to help them understand you can do it, buddy. I believe in you. Go ask them if they want to play basketball with you. Or how about let's invite somebody over? Who do you want to invite over? Like, be the creator to help them problem solve. The younger they are, the more help they're going to need to problem solve, okay? How about the opposite of a rescuer? A coach. Huh, look at this. This is what I do for a living. But I can sink down into the rescuer mode. When I have a client who is woe is me and they can't do it, I sometimes want to jump in and I'm like, no, Linda, no, I'm the coach. And a coach supports and assists without taking over. They ask questions and they listen, they encourage and they empower. And I say, hey, I believe in you. How can you do that? How can you change that? Okay? And so that's a coach. And that's your role as a parent. Okay? Not a rescuer, but a coach. How about the opposite of a persecutor? A challenger. Instead of criticizing and blaming, we're going to build them up. We're going to acknowledge that they need help. We're going to give them constructive help, okay? How about if you tried this, buddy? Have you thought of this? But again, when they're out of the season 3 and they're into season 4, what does unsolicited advice call? Criticism, okay? So you're done being the challenger unless they ask for it. Like, Mom, for some reason, I keep losing job after job after job. I don't know what to do. I need help. Okay, so she's asking for a challenger. Okay, so this empowerment triangle responds, and it goes and it works into the prefrontal cortex. And so, Mom and Dad, this is what I'm asking you to do. When you see your child slipping into the drama triangle, what are some things that you can do to flip the script and turn into the empowerment triangle? What are some things we need to do? They're freaking out, man. They are just like, their hair's on fire, like Merle was talking before. There's a tool that is really helpful that I know some of you are already using, and that's the timeout. Okay? I want you to put the timeout down here on that line. Okay? Because sometimes we, as parents, have to take a time out. We might have to go for a drive or go for a walk or go lay down or maybe go chill and read a book and let the child take a nap, or maybe they're watching a show, or maybe they're playing with blocks and they need a timeout. Maybe they're out of control. Okay? That's when you got to disengage, man. Do not feed that drama triangle. Don't feed the fire. You got to disengage. You got to throw water on that fire. You got to take a time out. You got to step back and you got to think, okay, I am in the fight or flight mode right now and they are winning. I'm going to flip the script and I'm going to become the challenger. Buddy, I know that was hard, but what can you do? I know you can do it. Okay? And so that's what we're looking for as far as how we change the mentality. There is somebody asked a question earlier about chores and allowance, okay? We love chores and allowance, which, by the way, we did a podcast on that, and there's podcast cards back there. We do 2 weekly podcasts. One Merle and I do together on parenting and family and marriages and faith, and then another one Merle does called Strong Dads with another gentleman. Strong Dads Doing Real Life, and it's for men and women too, but definitely geared toward the men. But on our podcast, we talked about chores and allowance in one of our shows. We got ripped by this whole group of women who believe that is like abusive. like almost like child slavery, human traffic. Like, I'm no lie. And they had this whole organization, this whole Facebook group, like, you do not make your kids do that. And I'm like, what world are we living in? Because we just turn our kids into victims where they get served all their life. Like, no, we've got to empower our kids. We got to equip our kids. And so chores and allowance is a great way to do that. We have 5 kiddos and they all got an allowance, $1 a year. So if they were 10, they got $10 a week, okay? But we taught them very early on savings, tithing, okay? Spending. Okay. And so we divided them up. I think it was 20% savings, 10% tithing, and then the rest was spending. Okay. We rounded it up to the dollar to make it easy. But we had them give money into the offering. Okay. The children's had an offering. So they had did offering, saving for the car or something big. Okay. They had a savings account. We put it in the savings account. And then the spending. So that way, when we went to a ball game and they wanted something from the concession stand, if they had spending money, they could do that. Or if they went to Walmart and they wanted to buy this really goofy toy, if they had spending, they got to spend that. And I'm telling you guys, that empowered our kids to feel like they have some control. And we were teasing over here about how sometimes they blow it on stupid stuff. Okay, well, they'll learn. That was a stupid idea. The toy broke in a week. But that's their learning and empowering. Bless you. Okay?
Guys, the cool thing about that, I mean, you can be a rescuer and get yourself in trouble. Give them that $10 a week or whatever you're going to finally decide on, and then they decide they want to go do something. You're like, well, here's some more money. Here's 20 or whatever. No, you just blew the whole thing. But instead, hey, here's your $10. Use it wisely. You're empowering them, right? And one of the things that is a trait of, if you look at the top 5 traits of successful people, no matter what list you look on, somewhere in that list will be self-discipline. Self-discipline. And so at a young age, no, I've got to put money in the bank or I've got to put it in a savings. And so when you want to go to Kings Island, yeah, you can go to Kings Island. That's fine. I hope you have enough money. Oh, yeah, no, I've got plenty of money. I've been saving. Cool. Oh, I don't have any money. Well, it looks like you won't be going to Kings Island. Right? And you allow that to do the teaching. We did with cars. The cars turned out to be really interesting. We will meet you halfway on cars. So when you're 16 and it's time to get your car, for every dollar you put in, we'll put $1 in. All right?
Dave Ramsey plan, by the way.
Yeah, that's a Dave Ramsey thing. And so our second oldest, we had to put the brakes on him. He had so much money saved up by the time he was 16.
We were going to take a loan out.
We were like, sorry, we don't have 10 grand to put into your 20 grand car here. And so we had to put a cap on him because he was going to kill us, all right? But our younger ones, I mean, here they are, 16, they got $1,200. They've been getting money all along. Good luck with your car, okay? And that's not mean. That's just, hey, you knew in advance. We posted the speed limit sign way, way, way earlier so they knew what was coming. Now, if all of a sudden they're 16 and I go rescue them with a car, I completely defeated the empowering process. That's what I want to do. Look, bud, this is in your hands. This is in your hands. You could have had a sweet car. This is in your hands.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
That's outside of all of it.
Yeah, that's a great question, Greg. And yeah, we want to bless our kids, right? We want to do special things, but make sure it's a special exception, not the regular rule. Our daughter, since she was in junior high, I remember her Pinteresting, that was her first like social media thing, Pinteresting her prom, okay, and her wedding. Okay, she was in 6th grade. And she had all of these things that she wanted for her prom, okay? And so when she had her 8th grade dance, she's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get my hair, my nails, my makeup, and my dress, and blah, blah, blah. And we're like, babe, you're not a senior in prom, you're a 6th grader, okay? And that looks different, okay? And so we had to show her, like, this is the responsibility. So now she's a senior, She has her prom next week. Okay. So we had to let her know your budget is $200. Okay. Whatever you can get for $200. If you can find $100 dress, then you can spend $100 on it on makeup and nails. But these girls are going and getting $800 dresses. And then they're like, oh, I don't know if I like that. And then they'll go and just not use it and they can't take it back. And my daughter is like, they went to this store. I'm like, well, you can go to that store and see if you can find something for $200. But we had to show her we're empowering you. Okay. We're not going to entitle it and turn you into a brat. Okay. We're going to empower you to make do with what? She has learned that Plato's Closet has some really great clothes and they're in her budget because she's buying her clothes. And so we want to empower them because that's what life is about, right? No one's going to hand you $800 dresses after, well, maybe in this world we do have that. But the problem is that that's what we're teaching our kids. They don't have to earn anything. They don't have to wait for anything. They don't have to, do things that show. And yes, so to answer your question, Greg, in a really long way, yes, we want to bless our kids, but we don't want to turn them into entitled brats. And the more you just give without anything attached, the more you say, I don't have to do anything. And that's what they learn.
Guys, there's a phrase we use all the time. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. I mean, if I'm a millionaire, right, if money's just no issue, it would be so easy to just bless our kids with whatever because it's just not a big deal. I mean, I got plenty of this stuff. That does virtually nothing to build their character as a person, right? And so the gifts, that we can have these one-off gifts, and the gifts are assigned to, hey, this is a gift, right? But as far as just me having the ability, don't do that to your kids, right? I mean, if successful, wealthy parents are those who say, no, you're going to learn to manage money just like I did, right? And so you don't give just because you can.
So that's one of the phrases that we use a lot. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Here's another phrase we use a lot. What's praised is repeated. What's praised is repeated. And so if you're praising the fact that they do nothing and they get whatever they want, you're going to keep getting that. But if they work their butt off and they earn something and you praise that, they're going to be like, oh, mom really thought I did a good job, or dad really was proud of me, okay? And that's what's going to be repeated. So, man, be careful what you're praising. Be careful what you're rewarding. Allowance. School age, when they're out doing things, when they're going to basketball games, when they're going out and around and they're noticing. But school age, I think, was 5, 6.
5 or 6 years old. The amount of money is, they don't even know what that means, okay? But the idea that we come to a church, some money, right? They just learn how you. Oh, say, hey, you want those $200? Knock yourself out. Mom and I will put $60.
And all of a sudden, they're not, I don't know if I'm going to spend 100 of my own money.
I like Walmart shoes. No, again, so we're never saying, no, you can't have that. What are you going to do to contribute? That's empowerment.
Yeah.
By the way, our kids have always found ways.
Yeah.
Looking like this.
Our son found out that you can buy some really nice shoes at Plato's Closet that are like $300 or $400 shoes, and he bought them for like $80, and he spent $80 of his own money. Ooh, I would have never bought used shoes, but when you want those really, really expensive shoes, you'll do that. So he's really proud of those things he bought, By the way, you guys are the heroes of your kids. They may not say that a lot, but they're watching everything you do. And so if you're a spender, if you're a saver, if you're a giver, they see that. If they see, they need to know that you tithe. They don't have to know how much, but they know that you tithe. They need to know you serve. They need to know that you are generous and that you are thrifty, that you do go to the sale rack. I taught my daughter really quick. If we go into American Eagle, we go back to the back of the store and we go to the sale rack first. She's learned that. But I learned that from my mom, okay? And that's how we teach our kiddos to be thrifty and frugal and responsible.
I just want to say, don't think that Lynn and I have this all down. We have failed on every single thing we've talked about. Okay, we've screamed, we've yelled, we've spent money when we shouldn't have. We've done all these things, right? We want that to be on the lesser side of things because
Yeah.
we know what we're shooting for. Okay, so don't think like this is a matter of they've got it together. No, like this is a process, and some days you wake up and you're kind of tired and you just go, whatever, we can do that. And other days so mood does come into play. We just kind of want to minimize that because then we have a lot of cleanup to do
Yeah.
when we become emotional parents.
That's a good point, hon. And honestly, what we would do is we apologize. You know what? I lost my crap yesterday. That was wrong of me.
Linda has to do that a lot more.
And humility is one of the things we're still working on in Merle. No, but it is something that we constantly are admitting. Like, hey, we don't have all the answers. We're parenting a girl for the very first time. It's a lot different than four boys. It's different world. So, yeah, be intentional. Don't be phony, okay, about your rewards and about your compliments and about your praises, okay? So we are going to give you a chance. Take a look at the questions that are on session 3, okay? The questions have to do with share a time when you reacted with the fear brain. You know, maybe you were yelling, maybe you were scared and you rescued, or, and then based on what you're learning, how would you handle maybe that same situation differently? Okay. So maybe share an example of you failing like we. All right. And we'll go to, it is 12:25.
All right. How about as we're waiting for a few folks to come in here and stuff, just to kind of launch this, up to this point, some things to kind of note or some summaries, items. Some takeaways. United front. Okay? United front. We've got to do it. Guys, here's where we get into problems sometimes with United Front. I didn't mention this earlier, but sometimes when you're trying to become that united front, your self righteousness gets in the way. You come in and you start to develop a plan, and you insist that your plan has got to be the one that we go with.
Because that's the way you're raised.
Yeah. And you're like, well, no, like, I don't think the kids should have to do that. Well, but I think the kids should. And so you're back in the bedroom for 4 hours hashing it over, something that doesn't really even matter. You see, most of the time, it's not about right or wrong. It's just get on the same page, just deliver the same message. That's all the kids have to see, the same message. Chances are you're not going to be drastically that different. Just say, you know what, I'm good with where you're at with that. That's good. This is not a self-righteous time for you to say, we will do it my way because you know I'm smarter than you. No, please don't get into that. That will, more often than not, please hear me, ladies, your men won't fight you. Our men are avoiders by nature when it comes to conflict with women. They might be going out in the bar fights, but they will not fight their wives more often than not. And so when a man is shot down, no, that's a ridiculous idea. Here's what you'll hear, and you need to understand the damage that this does. All right, whatever. Fine.
And then they disengage.
And as soon as you do that, they do this. Good luck raising your kids. You lost the unity because he never had a say. He never had a say. You've got to go with each other's ideas. It doesn't matter who's right. It matters that you're united, all right? And so take the turn on it. You know, like if Linda's in her area of authority in terms of knowledge, then I'm like, whatever, go with it. If I'm in my area of knowledge and that, she needs to submit to that. Like, no, they're buying a car. You know more about cars, whatever you want to do, okay? So that's really important in that unity.
Kind of throwing spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks, right? Just see what it is.
Yeah. The second part, hopefully, that you walk away with today in the summary part is establish your values. Do not make assumption on what your family values. Do not do it. You will step all over each other. State them, write them down. In our home, we value, and write those down between the two of you so that you both go, okay. And then you create expectations on those values, and you don't have to write rules that don't need to exist, okay? So maybe you have the value of respect. In our home, we respect. But you might have one daughter, like our daughter, she's never disrespected us. It's not of her nature, right? So I don't need to look at her and say, you will. I don't need to write a speed limit for her because she's afraid to speed. I don't need to do that. That's ridiculous. But our son, I'm going to have to write that speed limit, okay? And so you write the rules or expectations according to your home and your value system. You don't have to be beating it over everybody's head, right? And so you establish the values, and then you say, hey, in our home, we've had some problems here with this particular value being trampled. Here's what we expect, and here's how we will enforce it and praise it. Here's what it'll look like. State it up front, but you've got to know your values. Let's see. Establishing the boss. All right, this is not we use it as like it's who's the boss sort of funny. This is not a funny. This is really serious about, oh my gosh, you're going to let a 3-year-old run the home. Okay? So you really need to step up and say, no, we run this home with authority. Let's see. This is one of Linda's. I would have never written this. This is from a female. The importance of having a positive, healthy environment. And so using the acronym AWE, okay, AWE, AWE, a good combination and balance of affection, warmth, and encouragement. All right. And so we need this. Like sometimes when we talk parenting, sometimes we get stuck in a lot of discipline stuff. Yeah. You got to be, you know what? When you're in discipline mode, put your discipline hat on and drive it. But don't stay in discipline mode 24/7. Yeah. Discipline and then be done with it. It's the parent who, well, yesterday, how you were yesterday, so forget it today. No, you discipline them on that moment. And then when the air clears up again, hey, let's go down to Walmart. I got to go buy a few things. And that's where you enjoy them. That's where you do relationship building with kids. Mm-hmm. When the air's cool, that's where you do relationship building. Do not try to build a relationship when you're in the heat of the moment. You just get the job done in the heat of the moment. Yeah. Okay.
So that all, affection, warmth, encouragement. And Merle's right. We a lot of times are so much into the authority discipline mode that we leave out that part when we speak. And so we want to make sure that's important to us. And I want you to write this equation down that I live by. And it's tough because right now I'm in the rules, but rules minus relationship equals rebellion. Rules minus relationship equal rebellion. And guys, I am there right now with our 16-year-old. Merle shared a little bit of the struggles we had. And it's so hard because he's breaking every rule. But if we don't keep the relationship, we're going to have a rebellious kid. And so how do we set forth the values in our home, lead with authority and confidence, but yet not exasperate him, not crush his spirit? And this has been a dance. And it's been hard because they grew up with a lot of dysfunction. And that looks enticing to them. Their parents were both in prison for drugs. They both were incarcerated. They both have mental illness issues, both addiction issues. And it's like, man, it's hard because that's a pull for them to think that life is great. And so even though they saw the carnage. So what we're trying to do is help you guys. And this last session is all about healthy boundaries, okay? I am a huge boundary person. I teach this class a lot. There's books out there. There's Boundaries, which is it has a chapter on children. There's Boundaries with teens. There's Boundaries with kids. I did not have a Boundaries with kids left, so I have the other two. But it is a great book because it's all about how do I lead with confidence, with humility, with firmness, with gentleness, okay? So I want you to take that last paper that you have, and I want you to draw a heart in the middle of that note section for me. Okay? Because Proverbs 4:23 says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Mom, dad, you've got to guard your heart because if you feel wounded, if you feel afraid, if you feel threatened or manipulated, you have left your heart unprotected. And that's what's happening in our world today. Our kids don't know how to protect their heart. Okay? So that heart that you just drew, I want you to put your name in the middle of it. Okay? This heart is going to be a metaphor, a word picture for your life, your mind, your heart. Okay? And mom and dad, you have got to guard it. So put a box around your heart for me. Put a box around it. This box, I want you to label your fence. Okay? This fence is going to be how you know where my world ends and where that other person's yard starts. It's going to be dictating my responsibility, okay? I want you to write in your box somewhere, my yard, because I'm going to use that phrase, my yard, okay? Stay in your yard. You probably hear people say, stay in your lane, okay? As a mom, we do a horrible job of staying in our yard. We hop the fence and want to clean up everybody else's yards. Okay, we want to rescue and fix everybody else's problems, clean up everybody else's garbage. Okay, but the fence, I want you to label by the fence. I want you to label it God's word, because God's word is what's going to guard your heart. Okay, the Bible tells that over and over and over again. I have hidden these words in your heart, my heart, that I might not sin against you. It tells us all above that about guarding our heart, and so that heart guard is God's word. That's our fence. Which, by the way, this is a really hard class to teach when we're doing it court-ordered in a secular environment.
I was just going to say to that, we can say guard with God's word here when we do it court ordered, which I'll say this just because it might click with you too. Yeah. The fence, each of those slat boards of that picket fence, each one are those values that we said, respect board, trust board, honesty board. And so whenever somebody's breaking one of your values, which God's word should be our value system, but to make it even more simple, when somebody's crossing my fence because they are disrespectful, that's my fence. My fence is made up of my values or the values that God gives us.
Go back to your drama triangle. Drama triangle is your heart unprotected. The empowerment triangle is protecting your heart, okay? So when you get in fight or flight mode, you have a boundary down. Your fence is falling down, and you got to do your job to get back on and put that guard around your heart, okay? That's another warning sign. When you're angry, by the way, anger is a secondary emotion. It is your warning sign that boundaries have been crossed or you don't have any boundaries up. And your kids are just mowing right over it. It could be a 4-year-old and it's mowing right over your boundaries. It just knocked down your fence. It blew it out of the water. And so we've got to protect our heart. I want you to put a gate in your fence line somewhere and label it gate. Okay? There's got to be a way into your heart. There's got to be a way into your life. Okay? Who is allowed to come into your yard? Who's allowed to come through the fence? It's somebody who's willing to go through the gate. Does anybody know God's word enough to know who's the gate? Jesus says it in his word. John chapter 10, I want you to write John 10 down, and I want you to go back and read it later on, 1 through 10. Jesus literally describes him being the shepherd, and he physically is the gate that guards the sheep pen and the sheep that are in there. Guess who the sheep are? Us. And he says that no one gets to the Father except through me. I'm the gate, and my Father is the gatekeeper. You guys, we've got to have people in our life. We got to help our kids. By the way, when they're old enough, when they're in school age, teach them this. Teach them this. When they got a kid bullying them on the playground, when they got a kid that's mean in the neighborhood, say, hey, guys, you got your heart protected? I don't know. Well, what guards our heart? God's word. And then you teach them this. Who's in your yard? Did they go through the gate? Who's the gate? Jesus. Are they a Jesus lover? Do they align with your morals and values, or are they pushing up against your fence? If they're mean and nasty, don't let them in your yard. They didn't go through the gate. When you teach this to an elementary age kid, you've empowered them to protect their heart. Do you know why we have so many bullies today? Because we have so many unprotected hearts. That bully doesn't have a chance if you got your guard up, if you got your fence up, if you got your boundaries up, if you don't listen. So I got 3 questions I want to leave you today. And we're not going to have time to do them as a group, but we're going to have you go home and think about these 3 questions that I want you to think about, okay? Because this is where the empowerment comes from. The first question is this: what garbage in my yard is mine? What garbage in my yard is mine? And when I talk about garbage, I'm talking about anything that's not of God, anything that is sinful or just wrong, like just ugly. It could be anxiety, it could be anger, it could be guilt, it could be shame, it could be insecurities, it can be trauma, it can be anything that is not of God. But the question is, what garbage have I created? Do I have the anxiety? Do I have the depression? Do I have the insecurities? Do I have the guilt? Do I have the unforgiveness? Why am I not getting along with my mother-in-law? Because I have unforgiveness in my heart. That's my garbage. And I've let her push my buttons, and I've let her dump in my yard so long that I have created this unforgiveness that's mine to clean up. So there's some garbage. By the way, nothing can grow in your yard if you got a bunch of garbage laying around. You probably hear about toxic people, okay? That's just because they got a lot of garbage. I'm not saying they're garbage, by the way, but I'm talking about they create garbage. Maybe they're angry. Maybe they're resentful or bitter. Maybe they're ugly and shameful to you. So number 1 is what garbage is yours. Number 2 is what garbage is not yours. And this is where you can help your kids. Okay, those were mean words, okay? Don't pick that garbage up, babe. That's not you, okay? They said I was a meanie pants. Were you mean? No. Okay, well then that's garbage. Don't pick it up. But if they were mean, that's their garbage. Well, maybe I might have pushed them on the swing, Okay, well then that's their garbage. They were mean. Okay, that's your job to clean up. That's why they called you a meanie pants. Okay, so what garbage is yours, what garbage is not yours, and here's the third question. And this is something you need to start asking your kids. Who's in your yard? Who's in your yard? And what I mean by that is who is in your inner circle? And you need to help teach this your kids. It needs to be people that value the same things you value. People that don't tell you what you want to hear, but tell you what you need to hear. People you can trust in, lean on, go to. And you guys need to think about this. Who is in your yard? Connor, I am so thankful for you and Access putting this together, because this is a really important thing where we can have people in our yard who we can share ideas with, and we can share struggles with, and we can talk through problems with. We need people like this in our yard. People who respect our boundaries, who say, hey, you can't come over today, I understand. Like, I'm sure there were people that were supposed to be here today. And Connor's not going to go, like, where were you? We had Chick-fil-A for you, but you never showed up. We spent a lot of money on you, but you didn't really come. No, you say, hey, I'm sorry you had something going on. You respect their boundaries. You respect their no. You don't guilt them. You don't shame them. And so that's what we got to help teach our kids. Who is in your yard? Should they be in your yard? You can't trust them. You can't lean on them. They're not honest with you. They don't have your same morals and values. That fence isn't like your fence. So maybe you should kick them out of your yard. Which, by the way, it sounds very harsh, but my own mom, was not in my yard. Did I ever look at her and go, you're not in my yard? I didn't do that, but I had to emotionally, physically not have my mom in my yard. She wasn't a safe person. She struggled with depression. She was kind of a martyr. She blamed everybody for everything. And I was picking up that garbage. I was the rescuer, the people pleaser. I was the fawn, right? And I was constantly in a fight or flight. And I realized I don't want to be in that drama triangle anymore. I I am my own adult. We are married. We have our own family. I'm going to choose differently from my yard. And so I had to emotionally get my mom out of my yard. I loved her till the day she passed away. But I did not pick up her garbage anymore. And you guys have got to do that too. You got to teach our kids to do that too. Because there's ugly people in this world. I don't know if you noticed. There's a lot of evil in this world. But that's where the Bible says we be in the world, but not of the world. That's how we navigate life. That's how we go through hard things, is that we keep our boundaries up, which is God's word. We let people go through the gate, which is Jesus Christ. And by the way, I want you to draw two little stick people. Last thing, two little stick people on the outside of your fence. On the outside of your fence. Those stick people, I want you to label thieves and robbers. Thieves and robbers. And the reason why I said that is because Jesus in his word in John chapter 10 calls them thieves and robbers. And he says to us that they're trying to steal the sheep. They represent evil. And the Bible says in John 10:10 that the thief, right, comes to kill, steal, and destroy. But I have come, Jesus said, that you may have life and life to the fullest. And so, guys, that's what Rock Solid Families is all about. We know that this world is dark. It has its own evils. It has its own garbage. But we can be in the world. We can be the light in the darkness. We can be in the world, but not of the world, and have life to the fullest. And that's what we wanted to share with you. And so, Merle, you got things you want to share before we close?
Something I want to try to be fast about this, but we talked a lot. Linda mentioned anxiety and depression and all these things. These are secondary symptoms. And as we talked before, the amygdala, so I normally function in frontal cortex, right and left brain frontal cortex. And when something hits me that freaks me out a little bit, I drop down to my basic brain, which is survival. Okay. And so we are spending a lot of time getting driven back down to an instinctive fight or flight brain. So I need to just hear that. And so when you hear all these kids and adults having anxiety, depression, and all these things, I want you to just think of this. Write on your paper somewhere on a blank sheet, put a 4-way stop. Just put a cross intersection, 4-way stop. Just put a stop sign somewhere off the side of that. This is where this all starts. You come to the 4-way stop. You're driving your car, you come to the 4-way stop. And you go, I don't know where I go. Straight, right, left. Confusion. Write down the word confusion. As I sit there in confusion, no big deal. I'm a little confused. But all of a sudden, I look up in my rearview mirror, and I see a car approaching me from behind. Oh. And then they start to beep. Make a decision, you idiot. Confusion under pressure drops me to the survival brain. So confusion under pressure equals anxiety. Okay? So now I'm anxious. And this is where I see my personality come out. If I'm a fighter by nature, I get out of my car and I go back and I threaten the guy who beeped at me. Really, dude, you want some of this? If I'm a fleer by nature, I go, oh, and I just storm through. I'll figure it out on the other side. That's me. I'm an avoider. I'll figure it out later. All right? If I'm a freeze, I go, I don't know what to do. If I'm a fawn, I get out of my car and I go, I am so sorry I'm ruining your day because I don't know which way to go. I am so sorry. What can I do for you? All right? So if I deal, those are the symptoms, all right? But I'm still in the anxious mind. I'm in the anxious mind. Anxious minds demand a lot of energy. Adrenaline, cortisol are flying heavy because they have me in this all the time. I got to be ready. That takes a lot of energy. You stay in an anxious mind for a long time, and you'll go to the next phase, and that is called depression. Your body says, I don't know how much longer I can do this. I was good a couple weeks ago, but I'm just getting wore out. Depression that finally loses all hope is where we start to have these suicidal ideations. I got nothing. I got nothing. There's no way out of this mess. All right. So I only say that because I give you that visual. If I want to help somebody with suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety, I have to go back to the confusion. Before I even leave the house in my car, I need to sit in my house and I need to go, two things. What's my destination? Where am I going today? I have to name where I'm going. Hey, I'm out here in Middletown somewhere. I need to go to Paycor football stadium. I named a destination. Now, that's not quite good enough because from here to Paycor are probably 10,000 different roads I could travel through different routes. So the next thing I have to do is I have to name my route. It doesn't even matter if your route is the fastest route. Just name a route. Oh, I'm going to go down to Paycor, and these are the roads I'm going to travel. Guys, now I'm going to come to that four-way stop, and I'm not even going to have a thought. Oh, yeah, at this four-way, I take it right. I know this one. Anxiety never even had a chance to come because there was never confusion. So in your life or in your kid's life, if you're dealing with a lot of these fight, flight, everybody's arguing, lots of anxiety, you got to go back to clear the confusion. Get a plan. It doesn't even mean that it has to be the right plan. You just have to give yourself a target to shoot for. All right? And that will help alleviate so much of this whole issues of people emotionally fired up all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. It's the values and the boundaries, you know? So last thing I forgot totally, and we're actually not going to do a roundtable. We're going to end with a question and answer at the very end because we only have a couple minutes left. But I don't want to miss this because you guys are dealing with this every day, and that is the world of technology, okay? So boundaries in technology, let me help you with this, okay? Because I know that a lot of you are in this season 2 where you're like, what do we do? We didn't grow up with a smartphone. We didn't even have internet. What do we do with this, okay? Here's where we land with that, okay? We believe there should be some no screen zones, okay? And by the way, mom and dad, we're guilty of this, okay? I highly encourage some no screen zones. One is the mealtime. Okay, whether it's at McDonald's or whether it's around your dinner table, okay, make sure you and the kids, there's no tablets, there's no TVs, there's no phones. You guys, the mealtime, your dining room table is the biggest counseling center in your home. This is where your kids come and they share about their day and what they dealt with and how they did in their classroom and who they got in trouble with. Like, that's got to happen. And if you don't have that, if everybody's watching, I literally had to give homework one time to a couple, and they had to go buy 2 kitchen chairs because they didn't even have kitchen chairs to sit around a table and talk. And they didn't even have children yet. So the mealtime, bedtime. We have an 18 and a 16-year-old left in our house, okay? The 18-year-old just got to have her phone sleeping in her room when she turned 18. Before that, it always charged in an open area or in our room, okay? Please, gaming systems, iPads, computers, phones. Sleep deprivation is one of the greatest ills of our children right now because they're all sleeping with these electronics. They're not getting good rest. You know that. And they're irritable and they're impulsive because they're not getting good sleep. Here's another one that's a very controversial one, and we deal with this right now too, and that's car time. Outside of the meal time, car time is your biggest counseling room in your car. And if everybody's sitting on a phone, okay, Merle and I will drive together. Okay, it's really easy for the co-pilot just to be scrolling, okay? Not even engaging with your spouse. I'm guilty of that. But I know that this is the time. What am I saying to Merle if I'm just scrolling when he's driving? What am I communicating to him? Something better to do.
Okay, can I just say to that? Now, we're all guilty, okay? but we will rationalize it. Oh, I need to check my phone because we're going to see where we're going to go out to eat tomorrow. Like you always have a reason for why you hit. Stop it already. Stop it. That can wait. Right. So we always have a reason for why we have to do these things, and we're really just playing the game. Right?
So
Your kids will have the same thing.
yeah,
That's why.
yeah. So again, you've seen it. I'm at Staples the other day, and there's a 2-year-old in a car seat, and I'm sure they're probably not going to be in there more than 5 minutes. You don't really shop a whole long time at Staples, and they've got them all set up with their iPad and their drink, and I'm like, holy cow! Like we are not doing our kids any favors when we don't let them be bored. They can wait in a waiting room. They can wait in the grocery aisle. They can wait when they're, getting ready to go on a ride. When you hand them a screen, you are teaching them how to be impatient and impulsive. They're not learning. Okay? I know we're guilty, right? There's people that go in the bathroom and just sit in the bathroom and use their phone. Like I find myself even in an elevator, like awkward, I'll just pull out my phone. We're not learning how to engage with people, making eye contact, making small talk, waiting patiently. So please, 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 it is something we did not grow up with that our kids are dealing with constantly. So teach them now in your leadership season that no, we're not going to have phones around the dinner table. We're not going to have phones in the bedroom. We're not going to have phones in the car. Okay? We're going to talk to one another. Play the license plate game, play the alphabet game. Do things like we did when we were growing up to teach them you don't always have to have a screen. Here's my big time boundaries for technology, okay? One is I want you to write this organization down. Wait until 8th. Wait until 8th.org, I believe it is. Yes. Wait until 8th.org. It's 8 is an 8, number 8, TH. I would highly encourage every parent who has a child under the age of 13 to go onto this and sign the commitment. Basically, it's parents saying, I'm not going to let my child, we're not even going to talk about a smartphone until they're in the 8th grade. Because, man, wouldn't it be easy if half the kids in the class when they're 6th, 7th, and 8th graders don't have a phone because these parents made this commitment when the child was in 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade? But what happens is, and I heard it over here, they're in 2nd and 3rd grade and they're the only ones that don't have a smartphone. Or how about an Apple Watch, Mom? Like, I need this, Mom, when I go down to the neighbor's house. You've got to make that commitment now because I'm telling you, the pressure is real. You're probably already feeling it. And so when our kiddos came into our home, they were 11, 10, and 7, and we told them, their dad was the school counselor, and our 10-year-old, our 4th grader, was telling all of her new friends, my new mommy and daddy are going to buy me a new iPhone 7, which was the new one at the time. And the teacher came up to Merle and went, are you buying Mackenzie an iPhone 7? It's like, no, because we love you, we're not buying you an iPhone 7. But in her mind, love equated a phone.
Well, I still just had an iPhone 6, so there's no way she was going to get a 7.
So wait until 8th. The second thing I would encourage you to do is go on, I think it's, oh shoot, I wrote it down. Is it Family Life or is it Focus on the Family? I think it's Focus on the Family. And create a digital plan for your family where they'll walk you through the questions on, do you have them in their room? What age? What are they getting? What are they allowed to do? What are they allowed to surf? Like, you guys can create this digital plan, media plan for your family. Do it early, do it quick. And then lastly is remember, you're the parent, okay? You're the parent. You make decisions, united front, based on what you think is appropriate, not what the world says, not what their friends say, not what they say, but what you believe is the right thing. Please, please, we need more parents who are willing to be the bad guys, who are willing to be the unpopular parents to do the right thing.
And we're going to get this to discussion, but things just keep popping through my head. We could go on for another. Yeah. So, no is not a cuss word. All right. Started in the 90s. It started always parent from the positive, never parent from the negative. That's a lie. God's word gives us the carrot and the stick, as Linda mentioned earlier. Your kids need to know the negative. They need to learn the negative. The world doesn't care whether they hear the negative. So use the word no when it's appropriate. You're not saying no to them as a body, like you are not worth it. You're saying no to behaviors. Okay. And then let's see what was the other thing. Oh, you guys were talking about this earlier. Stop with the helicopter stuff. Let your kids fall and get bloody and bruised and hurt with reason. You know, I mean, with reason. It is okay. That's how you learn. You learn more from a failure than you do from a win every day. All right. And so it is okay to let them scuffle, and fall. Do not go to teachers and bail out your kid. Say, hey, you know, you're really upset with Mrs. Smith. What can you say to her? What can you do? You can empower them, but do not, outside of abuse, all right? You do not rescue your kid from these, because you're ruining your child's ability to problem solve and cope, all right? So teach your kids that no is okay, and teach them that it's okay to fall and get hurt and get scuffed, right? And Life 360 sounds like a wonderful thing. The more I hear about it, the more I'm rebelling against it. Our 16-year-old is a 16-year-old. If my parents only knew what I did when I was 16, right? And so it's okay. That's how they're learning. Otherwise, you might as well trap them in their bedroom and say, well, I'm preparing you to be that, remember that adult I want you to be when you're going to emancipate from my home? Well, good luck with me preparing you as I sit you in your bedroom like this and not doing anything. He's going to go out. He's going to make mistakes. He may even get in trouble. All right.
Yes, he will.
All right. Okay. Do not helicopter these kids. Let them fall and get dirty. It's cool. It's good. All right.
All right.
Discussion. Questions.
Well, I think we're about out of time. So maybe if
we're going till 2:30, right?
So we have some information back. We have brochures and cards. Please grab one of those. Get our emails. We would love to answer your questions that you have. Just email us, rocksolidfamilies.org, or you can get our cards out there.
Linda and Merle, okay with you guys to just kind of hang around for a little bit, and if you guys have any questions, we'd love to ask them. Awesome. Also, if any of us would want to follow up with you guys and have some, like one-on-one coaching sessions for parenting or marriage or whatever, how do we do that? How do we get?
So on rocksolidfamilies.org, at the bottom of every page, it says make an appointment. And so you can go click on there, and it's an online scheduling app. So you can click the coach you want. We also do have an adolescence specialist. So if you have adolescents, her name is Meredith Scudder. And like I mentioned before, she comes out of the therapy world, licensed therapy world. She is amazing. She works with all of our adult women and teen girls, and she's doing amazing work. So she's available as well.